Hey, fabulous clinicians, it's time. It's time to talk about the stuff that we don't even want to admit to. Now, I know that you would rather have me inspire you, encourage you, and affirm you, and I will, and I do, but I would not be living with integrity if I didn't call you out about this stuff. And please know that in me calling you out, I'm actually calling myself out. It's time. And I've got notes and I am going to be looking at them because I'm a little nervous about completing this video. I'm a little nervous about what I've got to say because as I was putting this together and as I was thinking about it and as I was writing and preparing for the Success Mindset Masterclass and on this topic of self-sabotage, I was confronted. And it's time to confront this stuff. And that's what we're going to do today. So we need to get this sorted. Have you realized that we're already in July? Half the year's gone. And I don't know about you, but I've got a lot of people saying to me, I'm not where I thought I would be. Things are so bizarre. It's different. It's weird. The stars haven't aligned. This hasn't manifested. This thing hasn't happened. I'm not the person I thought I would be. So we're entering into the third month of the Success Mindset Mastery series, the content that I've been writing, helping you understand how we've got to cultivate this mindset for success. So we've talked about knowing ourselves. We've talked about how personality is a great predictor of behavior. And we've also talked about how personality can point us in the direction of what's inspiring and encouraging, but also what's scary and what keeps us small. And we've also talked about our definition of success. And for a lot of us, that was new. It was new to hear someone talk about defining success. But how good is it to know that success is not some nebulous out there thing that we're trying to achieve by comparing ourselves to all these other people who are successful. Success is something we can define for ourselves and we can pursue it with our whole heart. We can pursue it with all our energy or not. We know who we are. We know what we want to feel like. We know what we want to experience when we want to be successful. And we heard Uriah Guilford last week explain that something as simple as him visualizing $20,000 in a bank account and understanding how that $20,000 was going to make him feel wasn't about achieving $20,000. It was about what was that going to help him experience. That just visualizing that and getting in touch with those experiential feelings, that was enough to drive him forward and help him, empower him, enable him to experience success. Tripping over my words, comparisonitis setting in, fear that I'm not going to be good enough setting in. Look out, here it comes. So here we are today, and today's vlog is a bit of tough love. So have you noticed that no amount of positive psychology, affirmations, accountability partners, self-loathing and shame, rumination, sleepless nights, worry, guilt, manifesting, extra training, more credentials, have you ever noticed that none of these things will actually stop you from doing stuff that doesn't help you, despite the fact that you know it doesn't help? Have you noticed that you just do it anyway? Come on, you know what I mean. But in case you don't, let me share a story with you. So you know that when you're on top of your clinical notes, it's a massive, massive productivity tool. Being on top of your clinical notes not only improves your productivity, it improves your energy, it improves your mood, it improves your quality of life. Yes, one of the most resented activities of a clinician is just that freaking important. So being on top of your clinical notes, it stops us from getting anxious and using up all this nervous energy unnecessarily. And you know that when your notes are up to date, you sleep better. You know you will feel satisfied and as though you have really finished when your notes are up to date. It will allow you more headspace to focus on other more invigorating and fulfilling things, unless ruminating about clinical notes is fulfilling for you. Yet I wonder if you're like me. I can still procrastinate about writing and keeping up to date with my clinical notes. I can prescribe many remedies for the better use of my time. I can dictate, I can type, I can handwrite, but I can still leave the writing of my clinical notes for a month or two. And let me tell you, it has absolutely nothing to do with your caseload being too big. I had just as much trouble keeping my clinical case notes up to date when I had a caseload of 40 as I did when I had a caseload of 5. This has nothing to do with the size of your clinical caseload. And let me assure you that the statement that there isn't enough time is also a lie, but it's one that we use to rationalize and intellectualize what's going on. Now, I don't know what's going on for you if you are like me and find it hard to write your clinical notes. But I can tell you that this level of procrastination for me is rooted in the belief that I'm not good enough and that someone's going to find out. You see, I still act in a way that supports this belief because what we focus on is what we get. So if I procrastinate about writing my notes, despite the head knowledge and intellect telling me that procrastination isn't helping me, it doesn't matter because it's entrenched behavior that is rooted in something far more powerful than logic, intellect, and rational behavior. Far more powerful. For me, this is rooted in fear, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I don't keep my notes up to date, one day I will get caught out, and then it will be proven that I'm not good enough and someone has just found out. It's the same thing as when you opt for drive-through McDonald's, rather than the fresh Whole Foods meal you've prepared for yourself. Because you can always start your clean eating tomorrow. There's always tomorrow, and there is no such thing as bad food. And what about that promise you made to yourself just yesterday that you weren't going to put any more processed food into your body, that you actually wanted to be putting good, nutritious food into your body? What's happened to that promise? What's happened to the logic and the intellect? Where did that all go? It's the same as why you refuse to look at the numbers in your business, despite knowing that the numbers will set you free, and despite knowing that if you knew your numbers, you wouldn't have to stress about what you didn't know anymore. And it doesn't matter if you are newly licensed, a new graduate, an old hand, if you've been in private practice 6 months or 20 years, we all have entrenched self-sabotage behaviors. Just like our clients, we are not immune, and despite being smart, we are not all that self-aware. We all, yes, all of us, have this amazing capacity to sabotage ourselves. And it's a lack of awareness, a lack of information, and a lack of knowing what to do when it arrives that stops us from actioning our mindset for success. This isn't something you can positively think your way into. As smart clinicians, we are pretty good at spotting our clients when they're engaged in self-sabotage. When we can see it in our clients, we tend to think it's a no-brainer. Why can't they see what we see? But we're not so good at spotting it in ourselves, and that's nothing to be ashamed of at all. I've now learned that whenever I engage a new consultant or a coach or an advisor in my business, I let them know how awesome I am at self-sabotage and what my favorite self-sabotage strategies are, because I refuse to let those little, insert your swear word here, get me down. I don't want to do it. And if someone can bring it to my attention, then hello, please do so. Awareness is empowering. Now let's be real. We've actually trained our brains to accept our self-sabotaging behavior. Yes, we have. We've trained our brain. That's one of the reasons it's so easy. It's a well-worn neural pathway, the path of least resistance, and it actually takes effort to rewire our brain to another behavior. Now, self-sabotage is not a one-size-fits-all condition. It's the result of unique, powerful, intelligent people who have learned to avoid things that are scary and possibly life-threatening. The way we engage in self-sabotage is our way of our primitive brain saying, Hey Joe, I'm going to keep you safe, because our brain doesn't know how to discern between the self-sabotage and the thing we should be really scared of. Because to our primitive brain, they're all the same signals. Therefore, our brains react in exactly the same way. This is why people will experience heart palpitations, knees, dizziness, nausea when they need to think about their budgeting. They have learned that budgeting is not safe, so their brain is reacting in a way that says danger, bad stuff, maybe a saber-toothed tiger up ahead. So don't be so hard on yourself knowing that you're sabotaging yourself. It's a human thing to do. We all do it. In fact, if you're not doing it, you're possibly not human. Now, it's not necessarily a helpful thing to do, so this isn't permission for you to keep doing it unless you want to, and that's your choice. Now that you know, like I know, that self-sabotage is real and it's in all of us, we can choose to do something about it. And that's why I've created the Success Mindset Masterclass the way I have. I've done it on purpose. We need to understand our personality and who we are. We need to define our criteria for success so that we know where we are headed. So then we know how our personality and our behavior is allowing our self-sabotage to turn up and spoil the party. We can choose to learn more, and we can learn how to mitigate our current and preferred behavior for self-sabotage. Or we can do nothing. The first step is awareness. It's understanding yourself well enough to know how self-sabotage is turning up for you. And that's exactly what next week's blog is going to be about. How does self-sabotage turn up? I have spoken to hundreds of clinicians now, and I can say that because I went and counted them up. And I have a list of the common ways we like to sabotage ourselves. We are awesome at this thing called self-sabotage. We really, really rock at it. Now, you get that a blog isn't going to be everything that you need to really address self-sabotage in your life. You know that, right? After all, you would not suggest to a client that they go away, read a blog post, and they don't need to come back for any clinical intervention. Right? So one blog post isn't going to fix this. So I'm just going to say it again. If this is something you want to know more about, if this is something that you know is stopping you from reaching where you want to be, then let me take you through a tried and proven process. I didn't make it up. It's not something I just went, I'm going to teach this thing to make some money. This is years of my own work on myself. It's not a 7-step system. It's unique and it's powerful to every person who engages in it. I didn't read it in a book either. I actually did the work to find this stuff out myself. This is where tough love becomes a challenge. I can guarantee that this will transform how you think about yourself. And with greater awareness comes the opportunity not to just change, but to transform. So go be your fabulous self, because I'm here cheering you on.